You're listening to Art Bell, Somewhere in Time. Tonight featuring Coast to Coast AM from the 25th of September, 1996.
WIBX.
Back now to Al Taylor. Al, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right. I want to touch on something you sort of touched on a moment ago, then we'll go right back to the lines, and that is this apparently, if you're able to give in and begin to do it, is such a joyful experience.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some little danger that you'll get out there and won't want to come back?
Well, I would say yes, you would not want to come back because it's like going to Disneyland and all of a sudden, you have to leave. You still have a lot of more rides you want to get on. It is that. It's so much fun, but be aware that you can do it again and again. I'm still having consciously controlled OBEs, and that's what my second book is going to be about, is my continuing travels. So, you don't have to cram it all into one thing or think, I got to do it now. You can continue to have these experiences throughout your life.
So no matter what, and this is a big sort of safety net for a lot of people, you are not going to ever get stuck in astral space.
No, you'll be recalled no matter how long you want to stay out. You eventually will be recalled, and you might come back so fast that you may feel like as if you've dropped from the ceiling or been slammed into your body.
Al, people who are in comas, where are they?
That's a good question, and I would say that the majority of people probably are OBE. Because once the body gets into the relaxed state, you're at a fork in the road. You can do pretty much whatever you want to do, or you may just start floating upward and not want to. That has happened to me numerous times, and that's what happened in the beginning when I didn't know what I was doing. I would just float upward without trying to.
Here's somebody with a physical malady. Al, about 3 years ago, went to my room, took a 2-hour nap. When I woke up, the whole right side of my torso was paralyzed.
Mm-hmm.
Doctors have no idea why. Mm-hmm. Today, I'm about 90% back to normal. Any thoughts?
See, that to me doesn't sound like the paralysis that I'm talking about.
This is a real physical malady.
Because the paralysis that I'm talking about, all it takes is for someone to touch you or a loud noise or for you, like I said, to concentrate on moving a small part of your body to completely 100% reconnect. If you are awake and you've had this paralysis and you wake up and you're still partially paralyzed, I would say that's definitely or more of a medical problem.
Right.
I'm not a doctor.
I understand.
It definitely doesn't sound like the paralysis I'm referring to.
All right, here's a young lady in Los Angeles who wants to know. She says, ask Albert about the possible meaning of that loud, shrieking sound that usually occurs in my head during this sleep paralysis. What is that sound?
Okay, if it's a loud, shrieking sound, see, generally it manifests in a high-pitched sound or a roaring of the wind or a roaring sound or a water sound or a musical note or the buzzing. And this is what's interesting, is and it goes into a lot of detail, is that when you achieve that altered state or disconnect from the physical, you are very aware of people's thoughts. And if you think about if you had 100 people in a room and they were all talking at the same time, it would be this horrific noise that you would not be able to understand.
Okay.
And a lot of times, Robert Monroe, I think he called it the M-band noise. A lot of times you hear thoughts. And it can be incredible and loud. I think that's pretty much possibly what the person may be experiencing.
All right. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Al Taylor. Hi.
Hi, this is Peter from Lakewood.
Yes,
Hello,
sir.
Peter.
And I'm taking a little bit different bent than you are. I was a Catholic monk trained in Tibetan meditation for many years. I'm no longer religious, but I come from a basically religious and now into the scientific, so I'm kind of looking at it differently. We were trained that there is no physical paralysis. If you can, you've heard of that phrase, mind over matter. Well, we were trained soul over mind over matter. And what the word that you used, this reconnection, we were taught that that's exactly what it is, but I think you're looking at it from a scientific perspective in that when you are in a relaxed state, and believe me, I agree with about 95% of everything you say. When you're in this relaxed state, whether it's at night or sleeping or through meditation, this soul comes out, or you come into this soul state, and when you become conscious that you're in this soul state, we're basically a physical being, and that's a mental and physical being, and you try to get your soul to control your physical, and you can't do it because that connection is not there. The soul cannot tell the physical body to move. So when you use the word paralysis, I think, it's a catchy word, but it's a negative word in that you can't move, there's negativity there. Really, if you have this understanding that you're going into this soul state, then you don't have that fear, and that's what we were trained. And I'm a little bit nervous because I'm not used to talking on the phone, but can you see it a little bit from my perspective?
Well, see, your perspective is a more evolved understanding of the phenomenon. But the average person that's out there and hasn't heard any of this, all they know is that they feel paralyzed.
Exactly.
So to be able to tell or talk to this person about the experience that they're having, I think paralysis seems to be a kind of a universal word that people understand.
I agree, but I think that if you interject instead of an understanding that it's more of a soul state that they don't have to worry about.
All right, but you got to understand, caller, that we've got to use language that addresses the average person. They're sitting out there scared out of their wits about this, and so we're trying to speak their language.
I understand. Just one other thing, too, about have you ever done anything about OBE, and I'm using your words, artwork?
That's interesting that you would say that because I am an artist. And if you see my book, I drew the cover of the book.
Oh, I have not seen it. I'm going to buy that book.
And my portfolio, I'd say 50% of the artwork in my portfolio came to me in dreams and altered states.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I brought that up is that, as I said, soul over mind over matter. We were taught that when you get through meditation, when you get to this state of soul, of that we had priceless pieces of artwork at the Abbey where I was, and as you probably know, being an artist, when you draw something, you as an artist are taking the essence like out of a tree, and you're mixing it with your soul, and then you're putting the essence of the tree, your interpretation of the essence of the tree, and your soul on the canvas, and so that's there forever, your soul and your essence of the tree on there. Well, we were taught how to go out of this in this altered state to the soul state of ourselves, and then go into the artwork to join with the soul of the artist and the essence of the tree. And I was wondering, have you done any of that?
Well, I didn't know that's what I was doing, but I would say it came so naturally that I didn't have to think about it. I just would get these visions and pictures in my head of scenes, and I would just feel compelled to draw them. I drew the cover at work at one of the major aerospace companies in Southern California. It came to me right in the middle of doing something that was related to my job, and I had to stop everything I was doing and draw the cover of the book.
Well, let's put off this national defense SDI stuff for a while and draw a cover for a book.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
I felt compelled.
Yeah. All right. Here's something for you, and tell me what this was. When I was, let's say, just many years ago now, I worked in the cable industry. And one day I was up on a pole, pole. We have cable on poles. And I did what I burned a pole, which means I fell off a pole. I came down on my butt and my elbow, and I impacted L4 and L5, and I hurt my back seriously. I spent about, one period of a month on my back. And this is going to sound strange, but when you get tired of watching TV, you get tired of doing what can be done from your back. So I used to lie there and look at the spackles on the ceiling. And you know what a spackled ceiling is like, right? All right. And I would sit there concentrating and examining these stupid spackles on the ceiling. and I would begin to feel, I could actually begin to feel the beginning of an altered state.
Right.
Looking at these dumb spackles, and I would snap myself out of it. But that was not during sleep. It wasn't paralyzed. I wasn't paralyzed, but I began to feel the beginning of an altered state. What was I doing?
Well, basically, Art, when you begin to meditate and achieve an altered state, what you're doing is you're quieting the mind. And when you quiet the mind, it is helpful to focus in on one specific thing. And as you do, and that's what you were doing. You were looking at this possibly one or two bumps on the ceiling. I tell people that you can also do the same thing and have something manifest where you have an actual experience by focusing on maybe the number 1 or a triangle or a square or a circle, just something very, very simple. Because like I said, when you quiet the mind, you do have these altered states or these experiences.
All right. First time caller line, you're on the air with Al Taylor. Hi.
Good morning, Art. Good morning, Al.
Good morning.
Great show.
Where are you, sir?
I'm in Saugus, California.
California, all right.
Yeah. Art, first, regarding your wife, I read in a journal several years ago that that type of asthma can be cured or helped with hypnosis. If you find a licensed hypnotist, they could maybe help your wife's allergies.
That's another altered state, isn't it?
Yes, sir, it is, and it works. In my opinion, and I agree with everything that Al says, is that the out-of-body experience is a type of hypnosis. I mean, you are actually self-hypnotizing yourself to relax and then projecting yourself out.
Isn't that, Al, a type of self-hypnosis?
I would say yes. Yes, and if you think about it, an altered state of consciousness is sort of a hypnotic trance or something. I would say yes, definitely.
Okay.
Something I want to mention, Art, because there's a lot of people out there who are having OBEs or are close to having them and aren't aware of the clues and symptoms.
Right.
I want to mention a few things that people will maybe be able to relate to.
All right.
And so I ask this in all my lectures that I do up and down the coast and in various places in the country. One of those is that if you fly in your dreams, whether you think you're really having a flying dream or not, that is a clue that you may be having an OBE or close to one.
Oh.
Another one is one of the callers mentioned vibration.
Yep.
See, being in Southern California, all of us feel bright vibrations out here, but this is more like an oscillation where it's steady. And that's a clue. Another one is if you hear the loud noises, as we spoke of, the buzzing or the roaring. Another one is the paralysis. And this is something that I wasn't aware of and scared me to death, is if you hear your name being called.
Oh, I don't know if I'd like that.
Yeah, well, that's kind of scary, but a lot of people have heard their names being called right before drifting off to sleep or right in the morning when they're about to wake up. And this is the last one that it may be a clue, is if you wake up twice. Now, that means you wake up, you think you're awake, and you may even go to the bathroom or walk around the house or fall out of the bed and then suddenly realize that you never did any of these things, that you were really sleeping.
So if you wake up and you hear, Al Taylor, Al over here, Mr. Taylor over here.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like that, except it's softer.
Oh, yeah? Well, I'm out of here.
People hear their names being called quite often because that's your guide calling you, or angel, whatever you want to call it.
Well, if that's my guide, I'm not going.
No, not God, guide.
No, I said guide. If that's my guide, I'm not going. I want my guide to say something like, hey, Art, good to see you. Want to take a little trip? Something like that. Well,
they're going to approach you in a way that is least threatening. So if that's what you want, that may be what you'll get.
I'll look forward to that. Wild Card Line, you're on the air with Al Taylor. Hello.
God, is that who it is when I hear my name being called? As soon as he said that, wow, that is. I've had that happen a few times, and I look around like, God, where'd that come from?
That's it.
Wow, that's really weird, because I hear a roar like from an airplane.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a lot of the symptoms that you have talked about, but the name thing, whoa, that just gave me chills. Anyway, I've been having these OBEs since I was about 5 years old.
Where are you, young lady?
I'm Debbie from Redondo Beach, California.
All right.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Al. And the last, I had one about a year ago, and I guess some people would call them recurring dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always had these since I was 5 years old. I guess they're the same thing. Or would you say they were the same thing?
Reoccurring dreams?
Yeah, an out-of-body experience?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Okay. If you can go into more detail, maybe I can understand a little further.
Well, I've had like 6 of these where I constantly, when I go to sleep, it's like a soap opera. It's a continuing thing. You know, I'll meet certain people and we'll hug. Or in this one dream, I meet this little boy who's in a hospital in a bed, and his brother's standing next to him. And we'll hug every time we meet, and they'll say, "How come you haven't visited us for all this time? You know, why don't you come more often?" And it's not like we're talking, but it's more like we're thinking to each other. And I remember like telling them or thinking to them that it's hard to get to them all the time. And the little boy, he reached up. The last time I had this, I think it's an out-of-body experience. I'm not really
this
sure.
is weird. Now, I've never heard of a dream like that where they're expecting you or they've seen you before and they're welcoming you back.
I've had like 6 of these since I was 5 years old, and I still to this day keep having the same 6.
It's not like a normal dream, is it, Al?
No, not really. You know, and then there are some possible explanations of what you may be experiencing.
Okay, well, let me finish. And so anyway, the last time that I had this one certain one where I see this little boy in the hospital, he put his hand on my chest, and I have in the past had a heart murmur, an extra heartbeat, I guess. And I've had EKGs to show this, and I've been on atenolol, which is they treat the extra heartbeat and high blood pressure with this medication. Well, the little boy put his hand on my heart, and he said, "I want your heart to be healed." And all of a sudden, I just shot up in bed, and ever since that day, I have not had my heart problem. And I immediately went off the medication, and I have never had that problem since.
Wonderful.
It was so neat.
Wonderful.
And I haven't been able to get back to him since, and I really want to go back and thank him.
That's it. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
you know,
I thought I'd go in and share that with you and see what you thought about that.
Well, I've heard a lot. I've heard some similar stories where people have gone and experienced things with a child or their mother or dead aunt or whatever. Or you know, guides come. I mean, guides are there for you, but they don't always present themselves exactly as you would think. Like if they feel that they are a male entity or a female, they may present themselves to you as a child, so you feel less threatened, so you feel comfortable, and you know that happens quite often. And the fact that it manifested physically by healing you also tells me that it's possibly an angelical kind of encounter or a guide type of thing, or it could be someone who is that, you know, because I believe in reincarnation, you know,
right,
it could be a soulmate of yours that is still on the other side, that is caring for you or loves you and is able to help you.
Boy, that would be so neat.
Well, maybe you'll get back there, ma'am. Al, how are you doing? You still awake?
I'm fine.
Yeah, you do. You sound
my favorite subject.
I know you sound awfully awake.
Yeah, I am.
All right, in that case, let's have you stick around. The phones are going absolutely berserk, as is my fax machine. So stay right where you are. There's more to come. Al Taylor is my guest.